Hello everyone, this is Ariel Helwani. You are staring live at the official UFC 211 weigh-in scale. We are here in Dallas, Texas, site of tomorrow night's mega card by the Ultimate Fighting Championship. Stand by, sit back, relax, grab a snack. It's always a fun ride here at the official UFC weigh-ins. We are going to kick things off this morning with the answer, Frankie Edgar. He meets Yair Rodriguez in what people are calling the people's main event. He is the former UFC lightweight champion. He is the current UFC featherweight contender, and he is fighting a man named Yair El Pantera Rodriguez. Fans are absolutely buzzing for this one, and Frankie making sure the scale is calibrated. You have to think he doesn't have an issue making weight this morning. Always the consummate professional. Frankie the Answer Edgar, coming off a win over Jeremy Stephens. And are we kicking things off on the right foot here this morning? A conversation about the scale. I doubt that Frankie Edgar weighs 200 pounds. He was, and perhaps this is a sign. Oh, and a bit of a joke. The Texas Commission cracking jokes about the New York Commission. I mean, could you believe this? A bit of a quip, if you will, from the Texas Commission. And one can argue they are in no place to be cracking jokes on any other commission, but we certainly appreciate the humor on this Friday morning. And there you have it, 145.5 for Frankie the Answer Edgar, coming off that win over Jeremy Stephens, Madison Square Garden, looking to win his second fight in a row. What an important fight for him. He said he believes he should be next in line for a title shot. If he beats Yair Rodriguez, we shall find out on Saturday night. So that's one down. Frankie Edgar is in the books. And now here we see Jessica Andrade, the young Brazilian fighter who will be fighting in her very first UFC title fight. Of course, she meets her one-time friend, one-time stablemate, if you will, both managed by the same company, Joanna Jędrzejczyk. And it appears as though they are still on good terms. Had some nice exchanges this week. So there you have it, Jessica Andrade standing on the scale. Twenty. 25 years young, Jessica Andrade, 114.5 for the strawweight contender. Looking as fit as ever. She has been unstoppable since dropping down to 115 pounds with wins over Jessica Penne, Joanne Calderwood, and most recently Angela Hill. She is a force to be reckoned with at strawweight, and she'll be receiving her first UFC title fight tomorrow night against Joanna Jędrzejczyk. So one half of the co-main event now officially in the books. That was Jessica Andrade. We move along here this morning, and we welcome in one Paulo Reyes, 7-3 fighter out of Mexico. He meets James Vick, Texas's own James Vick. And Paulo Reyes was involved almost a year ago in one of the best fights of 2016. You'll recall he fought Dong Young Kim at UFC 199, and they engaged in a battle that will be talked about for years to come. We'll hold that thought and welcome in Paulo Reyes here on the scale.
Paulo Reyes, 154.
154 for El Toro. He has won 3 fights in a row. I do appreciate the dramatic pause by the Texas commissioner. And so Paulo Reyes now official for his fight against James Vick tomorrow night. Expects to be one of the more entertaining bouts on the card. James Vick saying that he wanted to fight on this card here in Texas. He is Texas born and bred, and he will be meeting Polo Hayes tomorrow night. We move along now. One half of the curtain jerker tomorrow night. Joachim Christensen, 14-4, fighting out of Copenhagen, Denmark. 1-1 in the UFC. He's coming off a win back in January.
Joachim Christensen, 204.5.
He hits his mark, 204.5 for the Danish light heavyweight. Joachim Christensen. He meets Gajimurad Antigulov tomorrow night in the curtain jerker here at UFC 211. That fight, of course, will air live on UFC Fight Pass. Joachim Christensen looking to pick up his second UFC win. And now we move along to the middleweight division, and we welcome in Chris Jutko. And he is one of 9 American top team fighters competing tomorrow night, and he actually just found out 2 days ago that he will now be fighting on the pay-per-view main card as a result of the Pettis Cejudo cancellation. Chris Jutko meets David Branch in a little over 36 hours from now. 185 for the Polish fighter. He has quietly put together 5 wins in a row, coming off an impressive victory over Talis Latis. Prior to that, he had defeated Tamdan McCrory, Brad Scott, Scott Ashcombe, and Tor Trong. The Polish fighter, Chris Jutko. Of course, on Saturday night, a famous Polish fighter named Joanna Jędrzejczyk will also be competing, but this is a very important fight in the 185-pound division. And how about this? You talk about timing. David Branch, the aforementioned David Branch, the now former World Series of Fighting light heavyweight and middleweight champion, returning to the UFC. He was released several years ago, and now he is back. Seemingly completely different fighter.
David Branch, 185.0.
185.0 for the New York fighter. Has not lost since 2012. He lost to Anthony Johnson in a Titan FC bout. Since then, he has gone on quite a roll, and as I mentioned, he was the World Series of Fighting middleweight and light heavyweight champion. He's looked very good as of late. Most recently fought on New Year's Eve at Madison Square Garden, the theater to be exact, and defeated Louis Taylor via submission. That should be a fun one. David Branch. We move along now. Here's Gabriel Mowgli Benitez, fighting tomorrow night, part of the American Kickboxing Academy. Looked oh so good against Sam Sicilia back in September of last year in Hidalgo, Texas.
Gabriel Benitez, 145.5.
And he hits his mark. That is Mowgli, the 28-year-old Mexican fighter. 145.5 for Mowgli Benitez. Always an exciting fighter. He meets Enrique Barzola, fellow Latin American fighter. Barzola fighting out of Peru. And here we see, speaking of World Series of Fighting, their former strawweight champion, Jessica Aguilar, who we have not seen in the UFC and who we have not seen compete since August of 2015, UFC 190. Considered at one time the best strawweight in the world, Jessica Aguilar has dealt with a number of injuries. She is back, and she's fighting Courtney Casey tomorrow night.
Aguilar, 115.0.
And she hits her mark. That is championship weight right there for Jessica Aguilar. She hears some applause in the back. 115 for the former World Series of Fighting strawweight champion. As I mentioned, she faces Courtney Casey on Saturday night, an important fight at 115 pounds. She's been doing this for quite some time. She has the most amount of wins in the strawweight division overall, and she looks forward to continuing on that path on Saturday. We move along now. Here you see Jason Knight. 17-2 overall. He meets Chaz Skelly on the FX prelims. They call him the Kid. Crossing his arms, no nonsense up there. You wonder what that body language says. We'll find out in a matter of moments.
146.0.
146, Jason Knight, the Kid. He hits his mark. He has won 3 fights in a row. He is coming off a very impressive victory over Alex Caceres back in January. Was impressive on the mic as well, in fact. He won a performance of the night bonus after that victory. So that is Jason Knight, winner of his last 3, looking to go 4-0 in his last 4 fights. And here we see Yair Rodriguez. A lot of smart people pegging the young Mexican fighter as a future champion. He is certainly oozing star power these days, and he has a big task on his hands on Saturday night. First, he has to make weight, and of course, he meets Frankie Edgar at UFC 211. And look at that smile, the $1 million smile by El Pantera, just 24 years young.
Rodriguez, 146.0.
146.0 for El Pantera. Currently fighting out of Chicago, Illinois, but oh so proud of his Mexican heritage. In fact, he was in attendance last Saturday at the T-Mobile Arena when Saul Canelo Alvarez fought Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. He said his big takeaway that night was how much more exciting mixed martial arts is than boxing. He does not want Frankie Edgar's name, he says. He wants his own name. He is very confident going into Saturday night. We continue to move along here at a rapid pace. And we say hello to Enrique Barzola. Just talked about him briefly. El Fuerte, they call him. 12-3-1, currently fighting out of Lima, Peru. He meets Gabriel Mowgli Benitez, and he's coming off a win over Chris Avila in November.
Enrique Barzola, 146.0.
146.0 for the man they call El Fuerte. He has 4 victories unofficially in the UFC. Pardon me, he has... Well, I was counting his Ultimate Fighter fights, but those don't technically count. So he has actually 2 victories officially in the UFC, 1 loss, looking for his 3rd on Saturday night. Moving along now, we see here Gajimurad Antigulov, 19-4, the Russian fighter, looking to pick up his 2nd UFC victory. This man has not lost since 2013. He has won 13 fights in a row, and he is coming off a win over Marcos Rogerio de Lima via first-round submission back in November. Gadzimurad Antigulov, fighting out of Russia. 204.0. I did not hear the commissioner say his name, but we all know who he was talking about, of course. 204.0 for the Russian-born fighter, who, of course, is kicking things off tomorrow night against Joachim Christensen. Oh, and there you see Demian Maia, the MMA community up in arms when he was told that he would not be getting a title shot next, that he would have to go through the game bread. Jorge Masvidal And now here we see Demian Maia. He has been on some kind of roll as of late. Was waiting for his title shot. Thought he would get it after UFC 205. That fight, Tyron Woodley, Wonderboy Thompson went to a draw. Now here he is taking this fight. He has won 6 in a row. The former middleweight
170.5.
title contender hits his mark, 170.5 for the Brazilian fighter. Always a class act. He is coming off that impressive victory over Carlos Conde last August. Has not fought since then. Prior to that, submitted Matt Brown. Thoroughly dominated Gunnar Nelson, Neil Magny, and then Ryan LaFleur. Can't forget about Alexander Yakovlev. He has a big fight tomorrow against Jorge Masvidal, and you would think a victory would grant him a title shot, but as we know, nothing is official here in the world of mixed martial arts. We move along now, and we welcome in Dustin Diamond Poirier. Told us on Wednesday he has moved back home to Lafayette, Louisiana, but still a member of the American top team. He has a massive fight on his hands against Eddie Alvarez.
156.
156 for Dustin the Diamond Poirier. Meets Eddie Alvarez on the FX prelims, doing a wonderful thing, donating his entire fight kit to charity. Proceeds going to a food bank in Lafayette, Louisiana. You can learn more about that on our website, on his Twitter page. A massive fight for one Dustin Poirier, the longtime vet, former WEC fighter. He meets Eddie Alvarez tomorrow night, and he is official as well. And here we go. Jorge Masvidal. And we have the manager of one, John Jones, cracking jokes about, oh my, water spill, no problem. Manager of one, John Jones, cracking jokes about the towel. But here we have Jorge Masvidal. He meets Demian Maia tomorrow night. 171, Mr. Masvidal posing the side view. Well done. And they are not letting him hold that towel. That is for damn sure. He meets Demian Maia on Saturday night in a stellar matchup, a very important one. The 5-second pose here from Mr. Masvidal. He said he wants a title shot next. He said that he dressed up for Maia's funeral on Wednesday's media day. And we will hold that thought and welcome in one Chase Sherman to the proceedings. He meets Rashad Coulter tomorrow night. Seems like he's a little bit apprehensive to step on the scale. He is 9-3. And he is looking to pick up his first UFC win on Saturday. 0-2 thus far. Coming off a loss to Walt Harris. Prior to that, Justin Ledette meets Rashad Coulter.
Chase Sherman, 250.0.
250.0 for one Chase Sherman. They call him the Vanilla Gorilla. He makes weight. Of course, the heavyweight limit is 265 pounds. Oh, and how about this? John Anik has made an appearance. This is exciting. John, anything you want to say?
No, I'm just, excited to be here. I was in my room listening to your Jim Nance commentary style, and I thought I'd come down here and see it live and in color. I'm just going to sit down here to your right and watch and enjoy.
Okay, thank you, John. Good luck tomorrow. 12 fights, John, tomorrow, not 14 anymore, so that's good news for you. 12 fights, not 14.
Yes, I've already done 28 fighter cards, but I am more than happy to put 4 of them aside. It's a lot, man. People don't understand the difference between 12 and 13 and 13 and 14. It's actually a pretty big deal.
Yeah, it's 2 more fights. Yeah.
All right, have fun.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it. So there we have Rashad Coulter stepping on the scale, making his UFC debut on Saturday night. What a story for him. Getting this call in less than 2 weeks' notice.
Rashad Coulter, 241.0.
241.0 for Rashad Coulter, fighting out of Fortis MMA. They call him Daywalker. Told a great story about stepping up to one Daniel Cormier back in the day in Strikeforce. Gets his chance to fight, and Daniel Cormier will be calling the action alongside John Anik and Joe Rogan on Saturday night. Rashad Coulter has won his last 5 fights in a row. He has looked good. He likes to finish fights. Looking forward to his debut on Saturday. So we move along now. We welcome in one James Vick, the Texas native, as we said. 10-1 overall. The key for Vick has always been stay healthy. He needs the towel this time. They call him the Texecutioner.
Mr. Vick is at 156.0.
Ooh, and he hits his mark. The lightweight fighter hits his mark, 156.0. Mineral Wells, Texas. You hear that, John Anik. Always a soft spot in his heart for the tough live fighters. And he is long as the eye can see. I mean, look at that frame. Lightweight fighter who is 6'3" tall. Moving along now, we welcome in one Courtney Casey. She meets Jessica Aguilar tomorrow in an important strawweight fight. You have to respect Courtney Casey. She fights anyone, anytime.
Courtney Casey, 116.0.
116.0 for Courtney Casey. Big fight for her on Saturday. She is currently fighting out of Maui in Hawaii. Born in Mesa, Arizona, she attended the University of Texas, El Paso. So she's looking to get back on track on Saturday against the former WSOF strawweight champion. That's Courtney Casey. Moving along now, we welcome in one Chaz Skelly, who appears to need the towel as well. He has an important fight against one Jason Knight on Saturday. Hey, how are you? Wow, one of the top fighters in the world, Jinyu Frey, is joining us right now. When's your next fight? All right. We'll see you in the UFC soon? Will we see you in the UFC soon?
Chaz Skelly, 146.0.
One of the top Invicta fighters, Jinyu Frey, is here, and she is supporting her teammate Chaz Skelly, who just weighed in. You saw him just weigh successfully on the scale moments ago. He meets Jason Knight on Saturday in an important fight. And so far, no drama here in Dallas. Chaz Skelly has looked good as of late. He's won his last 2 fights in a row. We will pause that thought and welcome in the Uber sports fan, Cleveland's own, the heavyweight champion Stipe Miocic. Won the belt pretty much a year ago against Fabricio Verdum, Curitiba, Brazil. Successfully defended it in September in Cleveland against Alistair Overeem. He looks to defend it for the second time on Saturday. Stipe Miocic, a fighter by night, a firefighter by day. Proud Cleveland resident.
Stipe, is it 246?
246 for one Stipe Miocic. He hits his mark. He meets Junior Dos Santos. We have yet to see JDS. Expect him to make weight as well. And Miocic looking to avenge a loss that occurred back in December of 2014, 2.5 years ago. The last loss on his record. Lost a close decision to JDS. He has won 4 fights since then. JDS just won. But this is the fight that he wanted. Here we go. Eddie Alvarez walks in and says, "Goddamn Reebok," as he enters the room. He steps on the scale.
Eddie Alvarez, 156.0.
156.0. Dramatic pause there, but Eddie Alvarez hits his mark, the former lightweight champion. Very focused, turning to action for the first time since his loss to Conor McGregor at UFC 205. So many museums here. But we'll hold that thought as we welcome in the #1 contender in the UFC heavyweight division. They call him Cigano. Pound for pound, one of the nicest men in mixed martial arts. Junior Dos Santos stepping on the scale. Former heavyweight champion looking to weigh in for his heavyweight fight against Stipe Miocic.
Junior Dos Santos, 245.0.
And he hits his mark, 245.0, so no drama there. Maybe it was just sleeping in. 245.0 for one Cigano. Junior Dos Santos, the former heavyweight champion, is now official. That means the heavyweight title fight is official. Means the main event is official. And now we await the arrival of the strawweight champion, Joanna Jędrzejczyk. The curtain. There's Joanna arriving. She is the last to weigh in. She is the reigning defending UFC strawweight champion, the second in UFC history. The first, of course, Carla Esparza. She is going to weigh in a matter of seconds. She needs to make 115.0. No 1 pound allowance because this is a championship fight. Steps on the scale, Joanna Jędrzejczyk. Here we go, and it appears as though she has hit her mark.
115.0.
And she does it, 115.0. And you hear the applause. No drama this time as far as the main or co-main is concerned. Joanna Jędrzejczyk is official. Her main event is set. Her title fight, her co-main event. There she is squaring off. Jędrzejczyk on Drudge tomorrow night for the strawweight title. Made us wait it out a little bit, but in the end, she hits her mark, and we are good to go. And she stays on the scale for an extra second, just for good measure. All's well that ends well for Joanna champion, the Polish fighter now training out of American Top Team in South Florida. They are very high on her. She made the move prior to her last fight in New York when she defeated fellow Polish fighter Karolina Kowalkiewicz. And she looks to continue her undefeated streak as a UFC fighter.